Hey, this is the English man of EB English Music, and welcome to another Studio Talk vlog. We're continuing our series on the 90% SA Music Quota. That's now a little over a year into its existence. And I ran out of time, and the reason why I want to keep this to 5 to 6 minutes is obviously because data is trash and data costs are quite high, and I'm trying to accommodate all of us. And I want to continue talking about the financial implications of 90%. Now, with the increase of 3 to 4% being paid to collection agencies for things like performance royalty, among other royalties, what we must also remember is that I was talking about in the last video possible decline in numbers, decline in revenue, and with a decline in revenue, it doesn't matter how much you increase the percentage of how much you're paying to a collection agency, the artist or the composers and authors are going to suffer anyway because there's a decline in how much they're going to get as part of their royalty check, if they get that at all. Because there were also reports of collection agencies not being paid or not being paid on time. Also, if you are a member of SAMRO, you know that you only get paid with regards to radio royalties every 6 months, so twice in a year, unless there are other royalty adjustments, payments that get made. You really only get your big checks, in inverted commas, twice every year when it comes to radio and other general royalties. So this is another thing that you need to consider. So with advertising, with advertisers leaving or pulling their advertising from SABC radio stations, they are going to go to other radio stations that don't have this rule in place. Because there's still this perception of, even though people say local is lekker, there's still this negative perception when it comes to South African music, and that foreign is better. And that's not, and in order for something like the 90% to really work, then it makes sense to try and implement it across all radio stations. In Cape Town alone, out of the now 5 commercial radio stations that we have, only one of them is actually under the umbrella of the SABC, which means the other 4 have free reign as to what they want to play when it comes to music. And if advertisers are still thinking that foreign is better and putting their advertising into all these other radio stations where they don't play, as much South African music, in the end, again, still, the South African authors and composers are going to suffer because of a lack of revenue via royalties. Again, another thing to consider. So, where does that leave us? The one option could be to try and change the perception of advertisers. Some brands have, by recruiting local artists to be brand ambassadors. That could be one route to go, to try and change the perception of, hey, South African is great. South African foreign isn't necessarily better. Local is, in fact, lekker. The other thing would be then if you want to really implement a radical change with regards to a quota system, then it actually has to apply to all radio stations and not just those under the SABC. And maybe that is the goal of the likes of Don Laka and Gabby LaRue, who started this initiative of getting the SABC to change their quota system. And I think that would be the next step for them to go to speak to other radio stations to put pressure on them to play more South African music. I would love to hear your comments on this subject, particularly the financial implications of 90/10. You can leave your comments below. Like I said, I'm just giving you information that I have read and heard and seen over these last 12 months. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next Studio Talk vlog.
Ooh, it's the English man.